What's going on, YouTube? This is my next crazy project. This is actually a 2010 Outlander Max, and someone already did me the honor of stripping all of the components out of it. I do have everything, but I'm actually not going to rebuild this bike. I am going to swap that street bike engine into this chassis. So I'm going to give you a quick rundown of what is that going to take. First and foremost, we're going to be ditching the front differential, and that means that I have to go to a Renegade, a Gen 1 Renegade front end conversion pretty much. Because I have inboard brakes, I need outboard brakes. I found the A-arms, top and bottom, with knuckles on eBay for really cheap. Bought those, that way I can get my caliper mount. I got hubs coming, used hubs with rotors coming. I'm going to pull the front diff. I'm going to have to actually make some kind of bracket because the differential is a supporting structure. This bike is equipped with power steering. I can't make it work because it has signal input wires and I don't want to screw it up and burn up the system. So I'm actually ditching the harness. The gauge cluster did work. The fuel pump works. These are to be continued. You'll see that later video. But yeah, it's gonna be good. So let me start getting to work and I'll show you more of the details. Okay, so why did I choose this bike and not another bike? I needed a long wheelbase and I paid practically nothing for this bike. When I part it out, I'll be able to reclaim a ton of money from all the stuff. Long wheelbase equals room for this prop shaft. This rear drive shaft needs to be transferred over to this side. I'm probably going to cut this cross member out completely and build my own. Therefore, the shaft drive of the street bike motor will then become Frankenstein, and I'll make my own drive shaft to have the U-joint that's in this assembly right here that you can't see go to my rear output shaft, go to the rear diff. Now, I also chose the Can-Am platform because it's used to handling a lot of horsepower, and these rear ends are very strong. So with that said, I pretty much had to go with a long wheelbase, and for the price that I paid for this bike, I could not even think about buying a different style bike. Now, if I would have got a Gen 2 bike, they all have outboard brakes, a little better chassis, but I would have actually had to cut the chassis in half, stretch it out, or technically I was going to keep the body and then stretch the back half of the chassis out, and it would have looked just ridiculous. I'm going to actually probably C-channel this section right here on both sides and actually have the headers, because they're two Y-pipes, come down and run along the frame rail on both sides. So it's going to be a really, really interesting build, and I'm excited, man. The funniest part of this build is that this bike cost me $50. It had electrical issues, and then after the fact I got it running, the guy calls me and says, hey, I found the gauge cluster, and I don't know if you can see that, it has 76,000 miles on the engine. Now it's a Kawasaki ZG1000 or a Concord 1000, and when I looked up on the forum, they actually have really good reviews. These engines are really, really strong, and they've been known to go for 200,000 to 300,000 miles. So carburetor's already been rebuilt. I fixed the wiring harness. The junction box has a relay inside that the solder joints kind of break, and I literally held the start button and tapped it, and it remade ground. That was one problem, along with the rest of the harness that someone had really tampered with. So this is going to be a fun project, and I think the funnest part of it all is that I'm actually trying to be out of pocket $0 for this whole entire build, and I think I can achieve it. This is a sweat equity project, so let's see where it goes. Everything has been stripped that can be posted for sale except for this front diff. The front diff and the whole front end is actually for sale, and I'm going to show you why. This box right here is full of used parts. Now let's go take a look at them. I want you to notice everything on this front end. We have no caliper mount right here. We have a stamped steel lower arm, tubular upper, but there is a difference from this one and the one I'm about to show you. Now this is a full front end off of a 2011 XXC Outlander, and it's missing one of the guards, but I actually don't want either one of them. These are your lowers, and they're completely different. The reason why is that this one has the ball joint that mounts into it here, where the stamped steel arm actually is bolted here and mounts into the knuckle. Up top, you have your brake line mount, and I thought that was going to be the only difference. But when I actually look at them side by side, it actually looks like there's a lot more beef on this one than there is on this factory one. So maybe the XXC has a little bit beefier design. It is a cast piece. This is also a cast piece, and it is gusseted, very similar, but it actually indeed is a different casting. Also, I've noted this right here, that's for a brake line mount, I'm sure. And then we have the knuckles over here, and this is where the puzzle starts coming together. Put these side by side, obviously there's your brake mount. So we need to tear apart this front end, swap all our A-arms over. Unfortunately, it's just not as easy as a bolt on. This bracket back here, if you noticed, the upper arms are traditional style A-arm. The lowers are actually a stamped A-arm, and they have the bushing on the frame. So we're gonna have to cut all these off and weld tabs like up top so we can bolt on our lower arms. It's a bit of a project, but it's completely transform the bike, and we'll be able to pull the front differential. So let's get started on this. Alright, so we have the A-arms all laid on the table. It looks like they're in really good condition for being used. We actually have ball joints that don't have any up and down play on both sides. The knuckles are actually good too. Now what I did notice is these are definitely used A-arms. I knew that behind them, but the bushings are all good. Everything's here. I'm going to drill out all of these rivets because I'm not going to use these skid plates, along with these because somebody just snipped them with wire cutters to get the brake lines out. Now if you look at this one, this has been missing its guard for a long time, and there is a nice dent right here, and I don't believe it really affects the structure. It's still straight. When I actually put them side by side like so, I noticed that one was a little out, and as crude as it sounds, I literally just smacked it on the table, one good hit, put them back, they've been straight. Problem solved. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grind this smooth and get all the rust off. I'm actually going to weld this area right here and then finish it, and you'll never see that dent. So a little metal work. Alright, we have our drill bit. You always want to get a size a hair bigger than the rivet itself. That way you can actually drill the head off and get them off easily.
Now we have first trouble. Square. A square.
Garbage.
Alright, so now our A-arms are fully prepped. And we're going to move on to tearing down the front suspension off this bike. Knuckles are just sitting there ready. Good tight ball joints. So let's get this torn out. It's also going to make that front diff disappear. Alright, so the front end's completely tore down, and you can see we have the welder out because the snap ring won't engage inside the hub, and I can't pull the axle out. These axles are trash. I'm only going to be reusing this side of the axle. So I'm actually going to weld this solid, that way I can use it as a slide hammer and get this out of the differential. Alright, so welded it. Literally had to hit it with a hammer and vice grips, and then it pulled out. But the snap ring was much stronger in here than it was in this or in this, because this axle's so old and just kind of shot. So at least we got it out. Now we have a whole area to work in. Alright, so we pulled the front axle apart. You can see the bluing from this axle has been real hot before. And I actually might get the machine shop across the street to take this whole bell off and just leave the back. This is our XXC knuckle right here. It's a perfect fit, and then all I need is the hub with the disc mount on it. We'll be good to go, but it fits perfect. And as you can see, if I machined off this whole bell, it would look really, really nice. So that's going to be the plan. Okay, the front end is completely stripped. I'm very happy about that. And now you can finally see what I'm talking about with these lower mounts. These will be cut off, tabs will be welded on, and I'm hoping that I can actually use these as mounting points for my tabs to true everything up, and then tack weld at least one side, cut these off, and then have something that bolts together for almost like a jig. I'm not sure if we'll be so lucky, but we're going to try. Front diff seems good. Looks clean. I'm going to drain the oil out, see how that looks, and then post this for sale as well. I'm going to take the diff out. It looks like we will have to build a bracket from right here to up here, and maybe also here to here to add some strength back into this upper A-arm mount, because the diff is actually the structure for the upper A-arms. There is no frame coming through here to hold this. So we'll see what I do with that. It looks like this is also the backing plate for the front of the top A-arms, so we'll cross that bridge when we get there, but make good progress, and tomorrow we will be doing the A-arm mounts and getting the front suspension put back on this bike, so let's get it done.